In 1940, a coach named Clark Shaughnessy surprised the football world with a new wrinkle on a very old formation. It led football into an entire new era of offensive innovation. This is the story of the T formation and how it transformed football in the 1940s and led to the wide open offense we see today. This video is a continuation of our History of Offense series. We will discuss the changes that Shaughnessy brought, why they were important, and why they were widely adopted. We'll discuss variations made by some coaches, and I'll illustrate plays along with game footage so that you can better see what this mostly forgotten offense looked like. The T alignment was actually football's original formation back in the 1890s. They called it the regular formation back then. It was replaced by the mass formations in the mid-1890s, then mostly forgotten as the single wing came along, as invented by Pop Warner around 1908 to 1912. See our video on the history of the single wing in this series for more on that. The single wing ruled football, used by nearly every college and pro team in the land until 1940, when Clark Shaughnessy and the Stanford Indian Wow Boys exploded onto the scene. They were using the modern T formation, and that's where our story begins. It's 1940, and Shaughnessy has just taken over a Stanford team that won exactly one game the previous season. Not exactly a dream job, but Shaughnessy had been quietly working on something revolutionary during his time as an advisor to George Halas in the Chicago Bears. Halas and the NFL had a problem, the worst problem possible. The game was boring. From the book The Wow Boys, A Coach, a Team, and a Turning Point in College Football by James W. Johnson, published in 2006. Halas was well aware that the NFL had struggled since its inception in 1922 as an industrial Milltown league. It took a back seat in every aspect to college football. The league had attracted little attention from the press and fans, except for a brief flurry when the galloping ghost, Red Grange, the Illinois All-American, joined the NFL. But even that illustrious star couldn't draw enough people to the games. The play was just too dull. It lacked the pageantry of the college game, as well as the built-in loyalty of the alumni, students, and hometown fans. Halas recognized that the single-wing and double-wing offenses were boring spectators. During the 1932 season, neither the Chicago Bears nor their opponents scored a single touchdown through 4 games. The Bears tied 3 0-0 and lost 1 2-0. Behind the 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense run by standouts Grange and Bronco Nagurski. That was not the kind of football that would attract legions of fans to professional football, and Halas knew it. He wanted to liven up the game and began experimenting with the T formation. Enter Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy's hiring at Stanford was met with skepticism. When he told people he'd be running the T, they thought him mad. Legendary coach Pop Warner said, "If Stanford ever wins a single game with that crazy formation, you can throw all the football I ever knew into the Pacific Ocean. What they're doing is ridiculous," he said. Let's get into what made the T formation special. Picture the quarterback standing directly behind the center, ready to take the snap. Behind him are 3 running backs arranged in a T shape, 1 fullback directly behind the quarterback about 4 yards deep, and 2 halfbacks split slightly wider, forming the crossbar of the T. The line itself was a work of precision engineering. The guards would set up just 6 inches from the center, the tackles 12 inches from the guards, and the ends, what we'd call tight ends today, would be 36 inches from the tackles. This graduated spacing wasn't random. It was carefully designed to create perfect running lanes and passing pockets. On snap, the quarterback would take the ball and immediately turn his back to the defense. This pivot allowed him to hide the ball from defenders. He might hand off or pitch it to a back, and those 2 options froze the defense long enough for him to spot a receiver and throw a pass. In this way, the T was a much better passing formation than the single wing. But the real genius wasn't in this static setup, it was in how Shaughnessy and Halas made it move. Shaughnessy's breakthrough was adding a pre-snap motion to this classic alignment. One of the halfbacks could go in motion before the snap, moving laterally across the formation. This wasn't just movement for movement's sake. It forced the defenses to adjust on the fly and created natural mismatches. This formation doesn't look like much to us given our modern formations of football, but it was then. I'll let a legend explain why. From the book Notre Dame Football, the T Formation by Notre Dame coach Frank Leahy, published in 1949. To my thinking, the greatest advantage of the T is that your center becomes 100% a blocker. He actually is into the play before any other lineman because he knows exactly when the ball is going to be snapped, and he starts to operate accordingly. The T center gives no tip-off to the opponent since he does not have to look through his legs to see where his target is. He can feel him. The plays strike much more swiftly in the T, thus allowing the coach to use the element of surprise more effectively. The fact that the quarterback is partially covered by the center permits greater deception. Although there is but one basic formation, a maximum number of variations can be formulated without trouble to anyone except the opponent. That's a really great paragraph. When the man goes in motion, the opposition must send a man out to guard him. This automatically gets the defender out of the play. The backs arrive at the holes exactly when the linemen initiate the contact. Since this is true, it is not required that the holes remain open for long. Thus, we can employ man-for-man blocking and allow the linemen on the opposite side of the line from the hole to release their blocks and head downfield to remove the linebackers and safety men from the scene of activities. The T formation introduced the idea of brush blocking, where instead of engaging a defender, a lineman makes contact, then continues downfield into the second level, as we say now. It was revolutionary. From the Wow Boys. When Shaughnessy began instituting the formation for the Bears, Luckman remarked, "You're nuts! How can you send a halfback into the line alone, without a back to block for him? You'll get him killed!" Sid Luckman was a quarterback who won 4 championships for the Bears in 1940, 41, 43, and 46, and is probably the real first superstar quarterback in football history. The idea of creating a hole and letting a back run through it is commonplace, taken for granted now, but back then, this was something new. Offenses up until then, like the single wing, always included blockers in front of the ball carrier. In the early days, they would even have people hold on to the ball carrier and run with him through the line as interference. So what we take for granted was brand new to everyone when Shaughnessy started using it. The modernized T formation proved itself almost immediately in one of the most dominant games in football history. December 8th, 1940, the NFL championship game between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Redskins. The result? The Bears won 73-0. The game was so lopsided that in the second half, officials had to ask the Bears to stop kicking extra points because they were running out of footballs. They had already kicked too many into the stands. This wasn't just a game, it was a revolution broadcast live across the country. Now, it took a few years for the T to catch on. Remember, the world paused for World War II. They didn't stop playing football altogether, but it certainly wasn't a focus, and many players would learn the T formation by playing on service teams during the war. Stanford's 1940 season proved Shaughnessy to be a football genius. His previous gig at the University of Chicago had occurred when the Maroons were de-emphasizing football, ending it for good in 1939, and Shaughnessy had had few talented recruits. The Stanford Indians, as they were known then, went 10-0 in 1940 and finished second nationally behind Minnesota. They beat 7th-ranked Nebraska 21-13 in the 1941 Rose Bowl, the Cornhuskers' only other loss coming to Minnesota at the beginning of the season. The success of the newfangled T formation was on full display across the nation. If you watched our history on the single wing video, you know that the T formation directly led to the demise of the single wing. And by the 1950s, the T formation was almost everywhere. As teams started adopting the T formation, they began modifying it to suit their personnel and philosophies. And this is where we see football innovation at its finest. The split T. Don Farrow at Missouri created this variation in 1941. Farrow, a former basketball player, modeled his offense after the 2-on-1 fast break in basketball. The split T added the option play to the formation's arsenal. The quarterback would read an unblocked defensive player and either keep the ball or pitch it to a trailing back, just like a basketball player deciding whether to shoot or pass on a fast break. How's that for cross-sport innovation? Another key difference was in the line spacing. Farrow used wider splits between linemen, hence the split T name, to create natural running lanes. It was perfect for teams that might be outmanned but could use deception to level the playing field. The wing T. Dave Nelson at Delaware developed this brilliant hybrid in the early 1950s, essentially combining the T formation with elements of the single wing. Picture our basic T formation, but I now take one of those halfbacks and move him up closer to the line of scrimmage, just outside and slightly behind the tight end, creating a wing position. This variation was masterful because it combined the deception of the T with the power blocking schemes of the single wing. The wingback could serve as a blocker, receiver, or running threat, and his positioning created natural misdirection opportunities. When Iowa and LSU adopted this system in the 1950s, they proved it could work at the highest levels of college football. The T formation led to further innovation by later coaches, resulting in some of the best offenses in football history. The wishbone, developed by Emory Bellard at Texas in 1968, featuring a fullback close to the quarterback and two halfbacks in a wishbone arrangement. The I formation, with backs lined up directly behind each other, popularized by John McKay at USC and Tom Osborne at Nebraska. The impact of the T formation was immediate and lasting. It was aided by a rule change in 1945 that eliminated the requirement for the passer to be 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Sounds silly, and it was, and its elimination led to greatly expanded passing, which led to more fun, so the game wasn't as boring as it was before. Let me give you some examples that show just how dominant the T formation became. Frank Leahy's Notre Dame teams dominated the 1940s with the T, winning 4 national titles. The University of Oklahoma used it to win 47 straight games and 3 national titles in the 1950s under Bud Wilkinson. Sid Luckman became the NFL's first superstar T formation quarterback with the Bears. And by 1952, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, the last holdout, finally abandoned their single wing offense for the T. So is the T formation still around today? Well, yes and no. The pure T formation you saw in the 1940s, that's pretty much extinct at the highest levels. But its influence is everywhere in modern football. Think about it. The quarterback under center, that started with the T. Play action passing, T formation innovation. Quick handoffs, unlike the single wing where backs receive the ball 5 to 6 yards behind the line, T formation backs got the ball just 1 to 2 yards deep, allowing them to hit holes quickly. Pre-snap motion, the T formation brought that to prominence. Brush blocking, the idea that you didn't need a lead blocker, started with the T. In fact, I'd argue that every modern offensive formation, from the I formation to today's spread offenses, owes something to the T. It's like the evolutionary ancestor of modern football offenses. We're going to look at some T formation footage so you can see what it looks like. I tried to find footage that was both clear and showed the formations. Much of the footage is zoomed so far in you can't see the back sometimes. I kept the audio when it added to the presentation and if it wasn't so choppy as to be irritating. And I tried to clean up some of the footage a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. The first series of plays we're going to look at are from the 1941 Rose Bowl between Nebraska and Stanford. Nebraska's in the darker colored uniforms, and they're going to start in the single wing offense. This was the offense that the T formation replaced. We're going to see 3 nice runs from them that end up in a touchdown. The single wing is the formation that's in use at the time of this Rose Bowl. It's a beautiful scoring play up by Nebraska. Now we're going to switch to Stanford in the light-colored uniforms. And the first play we're going to see is a beautiful man-in-motion play, and it's a pass play, but it shows exactly what was different about every aspect of the new T formation. The man in motion to confuse the defense, and you'll notice the other guy goes out for a pass and there's absolutely nobody there to guard him. And then we see a quick hitter running play that almost scores for Stanford. And then on the next play, a quick hitting fake in the middle of the line that there's almost no resistance. Next up, Don Farrow, who invented the split T and the option play, which catapulted offense into a whole entire new direction.
Don Farrow looked around at the start of the 1941 season and knew he needed something extra. He had plenty of speed, but no one to throw the football. One thing he did have was a full house backfield loaded with aces: Stuber, Ice, Wade, and Reese. So Farrow grounded his air show in favor of an infantry attack that would lead the nation in rushing that year. Opening up touchdown avenues for the Glamour Boys was a steamroller offensive line, anchored by All-America center Darrell Jenkins, All-Big Six guard Mike Fitzgerald, and tackle Bob Jeffries. Farrow junked the old single wing in short punt formation in favor of his own version of the new T formation. He called it the split T. More accurately, it was the Farrow T, and it would revolutionize football.
Now the quarterback takes the ball from center here and moves directly down his line. Don't come back any. And he may hand off to this right halfback hitting in. That's what we call a handoff play. And it's a one of the fastest hitting plays in football. Then the famous split T option play comes in. He may either fake the ball here and keep it, or he may, if the end smashes toward him, he'll pitch the ball here to the left halfback coming around, and that is a pitch out and run. Now this diagram represents the running pass from the split T. And this left halfback coming around takes the pitch out, fakes the run, then throws the pass to the right end down the field.
Next, the 1947 Notre Dame Army game, Notre Dame at the time being coached by Frank Leahy, who won 4 national titles for the Irish.
These 3 yards. Jellins comes in at quarterback for the Cadets. Galiffa goes out. Here's a reverse play being given to Terry Brennan coming around the right side of his line. He's got a first down. He's past the 30 and he's knocked out of bounds on the 33. Terry Brennan run out of bounds on the 32 to 33-yard line, and it's a first down for Notre Dame, and now Notre Dame and Army are all even in first downs, 1 apiece. And of course, the Rooters at South Bend let go of a terrific yell as they realize that their team will be 2nd and 7. Arthur Van Noy comes in at left halfback, and Bobby Stewart is out. Here is a reverse with Terry Brennan giving it to Swistowitz. Swistowitz gets up to the 40-yard line, and on the play, there's a red handkerchief dropped on the field of action, which means there's a penalty on somebody. Referee walks in, picks the ball up. It had been advanced to the Notre Dame 40-yard line. 15 yards holding. Holding called on Notre Dame sets the Irish back to their own 24-yard line from the 39 to the 24. Well, it's pretty close to 18 yards to go for the first down. 2nd and 18 to Notre Dame. Here's a switch out to Terry Brennan, a basketball toss. Brennan takes it back on the 20, gets to the 22, and he's knocked down on the 23. Bill Yeoman, center of Army, is the man who hits him down. And so, with 9 minutes of playing time remaining in the first period of the football game from South Bend, Indiana, which the National Broadcasting Company is sending your way, the score is Notre Dame 7, Army nothing, as Terry Brennan scooted down the right sideline, 97 yards on the opening play of the game. Here comes the first pass of the afternoon. Lou Jack fading back to throw one. Johnny pitches it. It's up in the air. It's completed to the 35. Leon Hart takes it. He's on the 40. Stays on his feet. He's driven out of bounds as he crosses the midfield stripe. Leon Hart right into Notre Dame. Brings the Irish up the midfield. Johnny Lou Jack throwing. Probably the deadliest passing combination in collegiate football. 48-0 walloping that they got 2 years ago. A pass, Arnold DeLiffa to Johnny Trent is not good. What I meant to say a moment ago is that if Notre Dame can roll the score up today, I don't think they're going to show any mercy.
Reed shows the Sooners how the split tee works as he keeps and carries to his own 40-yard line. The Tar Heels sophomore quarterback takes to the air as he bullseye to Ed Sutton, who gets to the 47.
Earlier, I stated modern instances of T formations plays were mostly extinct. And then I went out and looked, and I found some. And here's Ohio State, a couple plays by Ohio State, and then the Atlanta Falcons, of course, the NFL, three power running backs. And then the last play instance you'll see is actually Ohio State with a beautiful play action fake at the goal line out of the tee. And the guy is wide open for the touchdown. The next time you watch a quarterback fake a handoff and throw a deep pass, or see a running back take advantage of pre-snap motion, remember you're watching the legacy of the T formation in action. It may be more than 80 years old, but its DNA is very much alive in every football game you watch. If you ever wondered how the game of football came about, I have an entire playlist that spans the years from 1869 when football started to 1912 when modern football began. You can see how football evolved from a brutal, violent game that killed a lot of people into the game we love today. And you can find that playlist right here. I'm John Johnston with Hardcore College Football History. Thank you.